Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Alexei, and today I have a special guest, Dave Fortman. Dave Fortman is a producer and musician. He is the guitarist for rock band Licali, and also as a producer and mixer, he has been working with such great metal bands as Godsmack, Evanescence, Slipknot, and many more. In our today's interview with Mr. Fortman, we're going to be talking about his work on the latest album of Godsmack, which is called Lighting Up the Sky. It's a huge honor to have you on my YouTube channel today, Mr. Fortman. And let's start our interview. How you became a sound engineer?
Oh, man. I started really early. I was a musician growing up. And I was in band and the normal stuff like that. But right around like high school, I think I was about 16, I started getting into pedals and effects. And I realized, wow, this is really cool, the stereo effect of chorusing. Then I bought a reverb, Roland DEP 5, I think it was back then, old school. And I fell in love with that thing. I was like, man, this is the greatest thing ever. So from there, then I was really curious about recording the band I was in high school. And so I went and bought a little 4-track recorder and just started playing around and mic and drum sets and going into that. And then eventually we got a console, like a mixing board for live sound. And I would just practice and practice and practice. And I would go record bands wherever they were at their rehearsal spaces. And that just kept on going. And then once when I was in Ugly Kid, I was still demoing for our band and a lot of other bands. Then when I was in Santa Barbara and the band broke up, I started to use my home studio as like a place of actual business to start recording clients and other bands and stuff like that. So that's how it all started, really. Yeah, because I was just into it when I was young,
How you got into recording and mixing metal?
Oh, man, that probably, was mostly due to just being, when I went back to Louisiana, where I'm from, I ended up doing a lot of the New Orleans heavy music scene, which is like Superjoint Ritual, Phil Anselmo, Crowbar, Eyehategod, a few other ones, Soylent Green was one of them. So that started. Then when I got in, the first break I ever had was with a band called 12 Stones, and they were rock, sort of heavy, but not, I don't know what kind of, I guess that's like the 90, or what do you call it, the early 2000s kind of rock that was around there. And then from there, it was Mudvayne and then Slipknot. So it just kind of happened, the whole time I've been doing this, it's pretty much been just rock music for me.
How you started working with Godsmack?
Well, I guess because, Sully, I thought, Shannon was my old drummer in Ugly Kid Joe, right? So apparently, I don't know, according to Shannon recently, Sully had actually just brought it up to him and say, I may want to try this guy out. I would talk to this guy, Dave Fortman. At the time, I had just finished like Slipknot. I'd also done Mudvayne. And both of those were big successes. So I think it's probably a little of both. I think Shannon already knew me. And so once they talked about it, it probably was the reason I got the call to at least come meet them. Like when you're a producer, you don't really just get the gig. You usually have to go meet the band. And so, we got along real well when I met Sully. And so, yeah, that's pretty much how it happened.
How drums were recorded for Lighting Up the Sky?
Oh, I was the mixer. That was Mudrock that did the original producer came back and did Lighting Up the Sky. I'm assuming it was pretty much like every other drum recording, close mic and all the shells. I know from the mix he had, I believe, some room mics involved. Also the standard left and right overhead mics, hat and ride, close mic'd. Yeah, I mean, I can remember the session. Yeah, it's just basically same way I do stuff, probably 421s on the toms and 57 on snare. I don't really know. I wasn't there, but that's generally the standard, pretty much standard rock drum kit miking technique. That's what I do too. You know, I think it's probably pretty similar.
My next question is about bass, how bass sound was created for Lighting Up the Sky.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I wasn't there for the recording of it. I'm just the mixer. But I mean, I think there was an amp recorded and a DI, which is pretty normal for everybody. Yeah, and I'm assuming it was bass amps, and then they put like a 421 or whatever microphone that Mudrock wanted to use for that. And then usually DI, most people just run it through, what's the name of that thing? Forget now. There's a tube DI everybody uses. It's failing me now. I can't remember, but pretty standard. You know, any kind of DI works. You just get a nice clean signal in the bass, and then the amp will have some distortion. I believe Robbie runs like, yeah, it was three things. I believe it's DI, amp, and then a dirty sound as well. So it's like a combination. And he always gets a great tone, you know, to every record. So yeah, it came out really good.
How guitar tone was created for Lighting Up the Sky.
Sure, yeah. It sounded like, from what I could see, that they had they were close mic cabs for sure, and there were some options that they left for mix where there was like some heavier versions of guitar. I used a combination. Some of them were kind of rock and roll, less dirty, and so I used a combination of kind of mixing them together and feeling it out. I think on that one, yeah. But yeah, standard. They were just using the heavy heads like Tony has, you know, with real good saturation. I don't know the exact models, but it all sounds like close mic 4x12 cabs for sure on that.
How Sully Erna's vocal was recorded for Lighting Up the Sky?
Oh, this would have been. I think he's on a Neumann, probably U87 or something of like that sort. I think. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I didn't produce it. I just mixed it. But I think he's probably, from what I saw when I went over there one time, U87, I'm guessing, yeah, or something of that sort. You know, could have been a lot of different mics, but I'm going to take a wild guess that it was probably like some kind of U87.
What is your approach on mixing drums for Godsmack?
You know, same thing. I just listen and take out like frequencies that are boxy, you know, pretty standard stuff, just dipping 300, 400 out of stuff like shell drums, like the toms, if it hadn't been taken out already. And I also use some samples and things to boost the sound and replace some of it, you know, to give it, so you can get rid of some of the cymbal bleed. Kick, same thing, if it needs it. And I beef it with a sample of mine, and then I take out some 400 probably out of the kick and maybe brighten the pedal sound a little bit. Cymbals, it all depends. I got to listen to them and then, decide how much of the boxiness or the low end I want to take out of there. You know, usually it's the same ranges probably, you know, I don't know, anywhere. It could be literally from 500 down to 200. If it's too boxy in there, because it'll make your snare start to sound really boxy, and you know, and if you build your snare around a boxy a boxy cymbal sound, then every time you move the cymbals up and down, the snare changes tone too much. So I try to take that out, eliminate that as much as possible, get the snare out of the overheads with a compressor, or duck it out of there, just so I have more control over levels, you know, without the tone changing so much. That's about it. And then and Sully loves to go in and ride detail cymbals and stuff like that. He's a really great drummer, got a great ear too, and he knows how to mix really well. So that's always a pleasure learning stuff from him about detail, you know, which I now, you know, use those techniques. He's actually turned me on to a lot of that, you know, like just rethinking, going back and like just get all the ride cymbals so you can hear them real clear, hi-hats and all that stuff. And it makes a big difference. I learned that on the Oracle when I worked with him, and I was like, damn, okay, this really does like bring out feel and all kind of things, you know, and certainly so. That's pretty much the process on drums for me, mixing.
What is your approach on mixing bass for Godsmack? And in this case, if you are using a DI of bass, what plugins do you use to create the final sound of bass for Godsmack?
Oh yeah. Well, on that one, he already had distortion. He already had most of the things I need. So what I do is pretty much just compress and EQ if I need to. On that album, I believe I probably gave it a pinch up at 500 maybe to get a little bit of definition. And then for sure, I love, my favorite compressor on bass is the Distressor, Empirical Labs Distressor, and I like it running on Opto, on the 10 to 1 Opto, and it's slowest attack, fastest release. Has always been my favorite. I learned that trick from Jay Baumgartner years ago, and it always just sounds really great like that. Nice and controlled, yet you still get all the pump and the transients from the bass. And that's probably about it. Now, if I get a bass that is just a DI, then I have a few different plugins. Like Nimbrini, this company makes a bass overdriver thing. It just sounds incredible. You just throw it on there, really don't have to do anything. Just leave it where it is. Just turn it up. I love that thing. So yeah, but not on Godsmack. Robbie already had a really, really great tone, or already baked in.
So what is your approach on mixing guitars for Godsmack? So in this case, how do you make guitars sound huge on their recordings? And also, do you need to compress the guitars, or do you just use some limiter to make them loud enough in your mixes?
Yeah, I generally don't compress guitar. Not yet, because it's really so compressed already. If you look at the wave file, it's just one flat line. So it's really not anything to really compress, in my opinion. Now, if it's more dynamic and it's not as dirty, maybe sometimes. And, I'll experiment with it, and I usually take it back off. Because sometimes it can give you the jump. If a guitar is coming in and out and you have a compressor, it can give you that quick attack slap. It kind of can be cool sometimes. Not something I do a lot, though. But for mixing guitar, yeah, I generally will go put it in the track first and figure out, like, it takes a while to get the final EQ because I have to get everything else kind of going. And the guitar usually has boxiness that needs to come out, and then figure out where to get the brightness to bite at, and it's way different once you get it into a mix than it is when you track, But yeah, EQ wise, I'm probably overall sometimes taking out, the normal mud areas. Could be 200 sometimes, even goes in weird, if it's boxy, I'll take out some 700, 500 maybe. And then it depends on how it's recorded. On those guitars, probably I gave it a little bite, I think, upwards. I think even a little clack, like 1K, or I don't really remember, but I remember taking out some of the boxiness of it around 250, 300, I think. So that's pretty much it, man, for mix on those, yeah.
What is your approach in mixing vocals for Godsmack? And in this case, can you please tell me about your plugin chain you are using for Sully Erna's vocals when you are mixing his vocals?
Oh, yeah. My chain's pretty much the same throughout for most people. And it really heavily relies on the UAD 1176 Blue Stripe. That's the best vocal compressor available, I think, in the box for Pro Tools. I love that thing. Everybody uses that thing. It's not a big secret. That's like the best vocal compressor, I think, that you can use. Just has a lot of spit and dirt. The real one, the box the actual outboard version of that is incredible sounding. I used to have a couple of those. But the version on UAD is pretty equal to it, I think. And what else? And of course, I'll run through and see if there's a de-esser needed, depending on my EQ structure. Sometimes if I'm going for real attacky 1K-ish stuff, then you don't need a de-esser. And a lot of times people over de-ess, and then you go listen to great records and you're like, well, okay, there's S's in this thing. So people can tell what you're saying, because S's are loud, like just talking, S's are loud. So it's natural. But if I do a de-esser, my favorite one is the soft tube. I don't know what mod. I think it's only like one. Just the regular old soft tube de-esser. Throw it on there. It's great. It sounds so natural. You don't have to touch it. Just leave it alone. And there's another one. Slate has that Elosis, ELOSIS, I think. Elosis. Yeah, that really good de-esser. Other than that, then I might, in some cases, throw a little dirt on there with either a decapitator or SPL has that saturated dirty, whatever it is for harmonics. Any one of those, just a little bit to give it some beef. That's probably it. And then effects-wise, focal chain would be going out, maybe some delay for sure. And in some spots, probably some verb mixed with delay, just depending on what it is. Some of them will be timing delays that are longer. And sometimes slap back just a hair if I'm feeling like I need to just put it in a space where it's going to sit in there better. That's about it, really. Yeah.
How did you prepare your mixes for Ted Jensen's mastering?
Oh, Ted doesn't mind just mastering a hot mix. I usually just mix it like I do, and I get it pretty hot. He's just so good at it. He just takes whatever I send him and makes it better. Cranks it and makes it loud and big and badass sounding. Yeah, that's pretty simple. Yeah, he's easy to deal with. Ted's great. Oh my God. Yeah. I've never had him call and say, yeah, can you turn it down some for me? He just goes for it, man. He's great.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful interview. It was a huge pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much for taking your time answering to my questions. And of course, thank you so much for all of your wonderful and very incredible audio work, especially on Evanescence, Forum album, for Slipknot, and of course for Godsmack. Thank you so much for creating such a great sound. And wish you only the best about your wonderful career.
Great, man. This is really cool. Thank you so much for doing this. It's amazing. Yeah.